Roki Sasaki is coming to an MLB team near you. Let's discuss on Fantasy Baseball today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5 on Tuesday, November 12th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White, and this past weekend we learned that 23-year-old Japanese phenom Roki Sasaki will be posted for MLB teams this offseason. The last 4 years in Japan, he had a 2.02 ERA, a .88 whip, 524 strikeouts over 414 and two-thirds innings. Dodgers seem like the overwhelming favorite, but we'll wait to find out where he lands. Scott, what are your expectations for Roki Sasaki entering 2025?
Well, they're high, but they're reasonably high. There have been so many pitching successes coming out of Japan in recent years that I think everyone just assumes it'll always be so. And look, I think in the broad sense, Roki Sasaki is going to be a success, but you can't just look at the 2.02 ERA and think, wow, this guy's amazing. Japan's kind of going through a dead ball era right now. The expectations for what an ERA should be are much lower there. 2.02 is, of course, still good, but not quite as good as it sounds on the surface. Also, there are some questions about how Roki Sasaki, even Roki Sasaki, is at this point, because while he's been measured at 102 miles per hour in the past, had an arm injury last year, came back, the velocity was down across the board. So we don't know if he's dealing at full capacity even. But there's a lot of upside here, clearly. Only 23 years old, so you could project more development onto him even. I just don't know that we should approach him the same way we approached Yoshinobu Yamamoto last year. In fact, I'm pretty confident we shouldn't. And I have him ranked quite a bit behind where we ranked Yamamoto last year. He's more like a top 30 pitcher, Roki Sasaki is for me, than top 15.
All right, Zach Neto had right shoulder surgery last week and could miss the start of next season. Apparently, he hurt his shoulder on a slide on September 26th. I know both you and Chris had Neto ranked as your number 11 shortstop for 2025. How much do you plan to lower Zach Neto now?
Well, I lowered him to 14th. It sounded like Chris went much lower, more like 20th. And I think mostly the discrepancy there is how long we expect Neto to be sidelined, because they weren't exactly clear, right? Not ready for the start of the season could mean he needs a couple more weeks, or it could mean he needs a quarter of the season to recover. So we'll know more later on and adjust based on that. But he was originally 11th for me. Now he's 14th. That still puts Neto ahead of Carlos Correa, Xavier Edwards, Tyler Fitzgerald. Those are the next three in my shortstop rankings, 15, 16, and 17. And all of those guys have pretty big question marks, too. I moved Neto behind Bo Bichette, Xander Bogaerts, and Matt McLain. Guys who also have questions, but certainly not questions of playing time.
And Jeff Hoffman is being pursued by some teams in free agency as a starting pitcher. Hoffman has been stellar as a reliever over the past 2 years with the Phillies. We just saw names like Garrett Crochet and Ronaldo Lopez transition back into starters. They were both awesome. We saw Seth Lugo do that the past 2 years. He's also been really good. It doesn't necessarily mean that's how it will play out for Jeff Hoffman, but we know that there's talent here, Scott. Whether he's a top-notch reliever or transition to a starter, I think Jeff Hoffman could be a pretty interesting sleeper for next season.
Yeah, definitely. No matter which way he goes, if he signs as a closer, if he signs as a starter, he's going to be more interesting than he was this past year. We just don't want to see him signed to be a setup man again, basically. I think of the names you mentioned there, Reynaldo Lopez makes for the closest comparison, because like Lopez, Jeff Hoffman got multiple chances as a starter and just never looked good in the role. Goes to relief, becomes a dominant reliever. We saw Reynaldo Lopez when he made that transition back to the rotation. Those gains stuck for the most part. And frankly, Jeff Hoffman was even more dominant in relief than Lopez was. So it would be an exciting possibility, him moving back to the rotation.
All right, for more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, and we will be back again on Thursday. Bye-bye!